All right. So my camera is camera works, but the light is broken still. So it's gonna be a dark camera doing this 2-week challenge feedback. Well, I'm gonna try to be slightly brief this week on this 2-week challenge, but I'll try to I tend to sit sometimes very long with the feedback, and tonight I just don't have time for it, so I'm gonna try to get closer, shorter. We're at 1,615 followers. That's pretty good. We don't have that much left to 2,000. So let's see here. Challenge. There we go. Let's see the chat here. Hey Jacob, Mobley Chilstrand del Luri Julio del Carvalho. Carvalho? Maybe? How's it going? Julio, yeah, today is, I usually do this on the weekend, but it's extra stream. It's a 2-week challenge. And so I'm going to be doing paintovers. Hey Zealine, Ohms. So this 2-week challenge was Game of Thrones. Tribute, more or less. So I'm going to be doing paintovers for that. So we'd start with zealots. I think it's a really good attempt. Hey, Devonation. Glad that you could make it. Julio, yeah, definitely. They learn a lot. They learn fast as well. Those who apply themselves. So, Zalen, just looking at what you've been doing, I think is great. I can see you changed a little bit. You know, did some alterations. And if we do a squint test, the colors are somewhat accurate. Placement is somewhat accurate, but if in terms of you want to do a direct copy, there is some issues with it. One way I try to measure in between the picture itself and your drawing. First is you look up and you look down, top one, bottom one, top one, bottom one, and whatever difference you see, you try to adjust. So there's obviously some issues, a lot of proportional issues, like her head should be taller. The proportions are off, but if we measure just by the eye and we look approximate like where they are, and yours are you know, yours are off. We can clearly see that. Let's say the top of the head is at her eyebrows, and she's way too low. So a good way to do that is just flick like flicker with your eyes and try to find anchor points. Like if you look at her side of the arm, like where that goes, it goes more or less on the those arms of the wall, and then you can kind of see in the middle of her head goes on that one, uh, and you can start like mapping out everything, and like the distance from the top to her head is her head more or less. So then you can measure, like if her head is that big, then the top of the picture should be there. So you can start mapping everything out, because it's really important that if you're going to do a kind of a copy, you really need to place everything correctly first, and with that, uh, you can't go straight to paint. You have to do construction drawing first. You have to like eyeball or measure the width of her head versus the shoulders, like the angle of the decline of her shoulders, and try to measure that. Like if you're gonna do from the beginning, like you flick your eyes up and down and try to find the placement, so that before you even start painting, you have an underdrawing with measurements and proportions, so you know approximately where everything should be, and then you go in and start applying um, the colors or the paint. Hey Miller and Chilistrumpan. Like observationally, the texture stuff, I think you're definitely uh, good at that. Like on her, I can see you spent a lot of time on her trying to get the face right, but unfortunately the construction drawing underneath is flawed, so it looks a bit weird.
Oh, great Odin's
Wow.
raven!
Cheers, Lurie. Thanks a lot. Thank you for the donation, man. Unfortunately, the ticker doesn't work for some reason. I've been trying to make it work, but it doesn't want to. Should be here. Doesn't show. It's broken. But thank you very much, man. It will definitely go for some good purpose. Right, so also looking at the color, a lot of the light is the same temperature. So you're going green and blue and all these things, and a lot of it is the same, and a lot of the difference is in the unlit parts. That's where the color difference is, but the light is white light. So I would have uh, treated the top light like just uh, one color. There's a quick little fix. So by just having the same, like in the movie, the scene is lit with that cold light from the top, rather than have a lot of variation in that light, and the variation, like I mentioned, the variation occurs underneath. So you get the different the differentiation in the shadows, where you can put more more different hues. So that would be my biggest feedback. I mean, the attempt at drawing the scene is great. It's a great practice. Next time, just have a stronger foundation drawing and measure everything out before you start painting, and you'll see a huge difference in quality if you measure and don't jump in to render before you're comfortable with the foundation drawing. So it's a good start. Unfortunately, I don't think you can push it further without repainting massive portions. So rather take it as a lesson for the next time, and like try to learn from the mistakes. Also, there's a lot of subtlety here with like indirect light. So when you do your observation stuff, you really need to try to squint and try to like measure with your eyes like the intensity of the values, and try to measure them against the brightest point versus the darkest point. Like a lot of stuff you're putting too high contrast because you're trying to just I guess fix it. It's important that you try to be subtle. I run the risk myself, like I mentioned before, that I'm quite heavy-handed. I like to go high contrast fast, but yeah, there's a lot of subtleties in the light, and the more consistent you are with the light, the more coherent the scene is going to read. So whenever you're doing those kind of things, make sure to like do squint with your eyes, and also actively trying to measure the intensity of the values, because when your whole scene is coherent, it's just going to read that much stronger. Hey, Andrea. Yeah, so that's that one. Next, let's kill that one. Let's kill that one, so I don't, by mistake, open anything that I shouldn't open. Okay, next one is Chillstrand. You know nothing, Jon Snow. Okay. So you're going with a kind of pyramid composition. I think that's cool. It works well. There's certain small things I would change. First of all, how is this? Is the placement of that sword. It's a little bit tangent with the house. Also, it's a bit of an awkward, like angling the wrist too much out. Kind of hints of a weak wrist. Yeah, the skyscrapers were in my clipboard. So and secondly, I think the light is very it's very flat in the sense that it doesn't have that is not lit. It's lit by object, not lit in the scene. By that, I mean like there's no there's no like global light that dictates stuff being in shadow and stuff being in light. Well, if there is here, it's not very clear. It's not an obvious difference, right? So what's important is to get that light rhythm. And one easy way to, like, you can check that, probably will work. I hope it will work. With threshold, like if you move it, you can see that there is really very little information in when it comes to big picture wise, and that everything is. I mean, this is not the one foolproof way to check it, but usually what threshold does is it splits on or off when it comes to value with a certain range. And you can see that there is not a lot of kind of big picture volumetric stuff happening. So one thing I would focus on is thinking about how you can direct the light to be powerful to the scene, right? As his facing shadow, maybe having rim light. You know, what can you do to have a more kind of cinematic lighting, right? Because when it comes to illustration, that's what has to read first, right? You gotta get that feeling of environment. You gotta get that feeling of where they are rather than what they look like. What they look like comes secondary, or like it becomes the secondary read, right? When first we always look at the scene when it comes to illustration, like what's happening. So that's, I can clearly see that's missing in the painting. And what I'm doing now is just kind of roughly putting in some light direction so that the scene will read cleaner. So I'm pushing back shapes and adding shapes. And then when you do that, it's also very important that you think globally, like the whole environment, rather than the object only, the character only being lit by this weapon, because like maybe his helmet over here is being lit and his armor over here is being lit. So that when you do that, those kind of things, you're interconnecting. You're connecting the characters together by them sharing the same space. So then you won't doubt where they are together in that sense. When it comes to the composition, I think it works. I think it's a good simple competition. Composition, not competition. The risk of when you're doing like low saturation paintings is that there is this trick where you can paint the painting more or less with only grays, and you can vary the temperature of the grays, and it'll look like the painting has color. I don't know the technical name for it, but there is a painting technique that you can use. It doesn't come up correctly, but you can get like it can look like it's warm or cold temperature in the palette only by shifting the temperature of the gray. So when you're doing stuff like low saturation things, you gotta be careful of first of all to shift the temperatures around too much, or not shift them enough. So when they're only one gray, it's so easy to for it to be boring to look at, right? So what you got to do is just um, do subtle hue shifts in the gray to spice it up. A good person to look at that, for example, probably Craig Mullins. He has a lot of different hue shifts. Obviously, Craig Mullins is is in a category of himself, but I think there is something there in his technique of shifting the hues that you can look at and try to reverse engineer um, what he's doing in order to keep a plain, let's say a plain sky, interesting. Is that he hue shifts a lot, and he separates it. So one cheat to do that is that posterize trick I always like doing, and it's because what that does, it forces simple low uh, gradients into bands. So by doing that, you can see there's neutral gray, there's like cyan and purples, and warm grays, just by doing that little trick. So by doing that, you all of a sudden you have a lot more interesting just grays. I mean, I think in the stream you can't see it that well. It kind of washes out a little bit, but so ideally you'll be building the image from the beginning with this mindset, rather than using this posturizing trick to attempt to save the scene, right? But I think all in all, uh, it's a good thing to practice and try practicing seeing, so that you can adjust it um, in case you do the mistake again. But actively thinking about it is going to improve the way you use colors a lot more. And one thing I'll also see a lot, which is a common mistake, is that even in light, you're having high contrast. And if you study a lot of movies, what happens with light and in fire, etc., is that it eats the lens, right? It feeds into the lens, and the lens blooms, and the contrast is lessened. So let me try to do a quick Google. All right. So here as an example, you see it's still high contrast. We still see but the intensity of that fire is so different if we only zoom in there. It's not very black and white. It's very like the fire itself washes out a lot of the blacks compared to how black it is there. It's still there's the character is still in being lit by the same light in the scene, except that the fire is blooming. Like it reduces the amount of contrast because it's so intense, right? It blasts a lot. Oh, that looks like fun. Photoshop crashed. So you're not getting a pin over. Saved. Oh, that was fun. Yeah, nice, good crash mid paint over. Anyway, so that's that done. Unfortunately, I can't show you the subtleties because obviously it crashed, but hopefully that will help you uh, think about the difference. So here is your original, and as you can see, it's um, very high contrast, and you can look at his hands down here. Uh, those, right? It's very high contrast, even though it's shining, and it's almost like it's lit, but it's not lit, and everything is a little bit flat. So keep that in mind, and and uh, and like the whole global lighting and having the scenario being uh, lit as a whole, an interesting light, like a dramatic light. However you want to set that up is different. You know, where do you want to have the eyes to go? Dear Bart, my chair is a bit of troll bones. Yeah, maybe there's trolls everywhere lately, making the camera crash, batteries run out. Who knows? So here's aluminiums, and he also posted uh, feedback from someone else's, and this is his changes, which he didn't have time to finish. And here's his finished painting. And I would say I agree with the changes. This composition is way stronger, a lot more drama. Uh, there's a little bit in this instance here. Let's go with this one because I think it's better. Uh, I don't know why it's that Wanamir. It doesn't say so for me, but maybe it's just some glitch. We'll see. It says that it's in creative to me, but who knows? But thanks though. We'll see how it goes. Um, I think overall, I think the composition is cool. I think seeing the arms and legs of the dragon is great. One thing, I think the intensity of the eyes could be, you know, like greater, like it's wants to eat him, and that being said, also like increase the intensity of the dragon's mouth by opening it more. You know, maybe we can see some tongue, maybe we can see like start of fire down here to help with the cold and warm interaction. Uh, and here it's a little bit like for Chillstrand as well, um, like the intensity of the light versus where the direction of the shapes that you're painting. They need to be more coherent, like globally. How much detailing is good detailing and not over detailing? It all depends on I'd say the purpose of the details. Uh, let me try to find a good language. Um, it's about focusing. Okay, this is a good example. Oh, of course. Oh, come on. It's a good example. All right. Here we go. So here, a screenshot, right? And you could argue that if you would paint this, the most details would be like on the card, on his face, like the jacket, and these things, and this machine, and the rest, you could easily mask a lot more. Like all this, you don't need to, you could have it like less details and just blocks of paint. But then it comes to like the hair, a lot of it is suggested. Like all of this could easily be undetailed, and you have to detail the hair because it's in a focal point, and then all the skin stuff in his face needs to be there, right? But you don't need to put all the hairs on his hand, or the fiber of the pencil in the cup. So a good idea would be like, so in this one, what would be a good way of detailing, right? So that you would then need to decide like where's the story, where's the narrative, what do you want to say with the painting, right? And much like this one, like where do we want to see? We obviously want to see his face, and the purpose of him holding up his hand, right? He's sitting in, I think, doing a mind reading test, I think. Anyways, so we can look at this and go, what's the narrative? We obviously want to see the dangers of the dragon versus him. And then you could go, all right, probably we want to see him, right? So all the details there. But then you have to go, is it really important that we see all the horns perfectly evenly lit? Or could we, much like his hair, have some in shadow, and only have one or two pieces in the front that dictates the behavior of those horns, and then the rest just kind of informs the rest of the painting? And all these texture stuff in the foreground, is it needed for it to be so perfectly well detailed everywhere, or could we, like the hair or the background, just kind of nuke a lot of it, and maybe just like in this example, if we would look here, and maybe it was we could relate it to the things in the background there. It's not super detailed, it's kind of fuzzy, but the behavior is there, right? So in this instance, for the wings in the foreground, um, we don't maybe need to see all these details. We could just inform the behavior, or we could show that it's transparent, but that probably doesn't need to be perfectly explained because we want the interaction to be between those two. So then it also comes to, so if something is lit in this instance, a lot of details can go there, much like the guy's face. And here you can suggest a lot more, but still probably need some sort of rhythm in there, like his jacket, because it's a pivotal point of the story, right? The composition. And then I think the background of these wings, they're great, but I think they're too evenly lit, and what that does, it leads the image though that way. But you want the rhythm to go like that, right? Because that's the composition, the strength of the composition. So what I would probably do is reduce a lot of the information, and not have it so high contrast. I can do that. Actually, probably reverse it. So it's darker here and brighter closer to the dragon, so that he is in shadow because he's evil, right? So he doesn't have light. You could make that decision, you know, however you want. But I decided that that's kind of the solution I'm going to apply to the lighting in this composition to make it stronger. You could easily go the other way, but it probably would indicate that he's more friendly. Right, so he's kind of jumping, and you could easily have him lit from the back a little bit as well to help him be separated. And I'm not sure about the tail ending like that, but whatever, it's okay. You probably should try to separate some parts. And the nose, I don't like that it's like in front of the wing. So probably it needs a little bit of nice brush mark. Hey plumbers. Yeah, it's an extra stream today, doing paintovers for the 2-week challenge. Yeah, so I think compositionally these changes are cool as well, but it does reduce the intensity of this interaction, but it does inform the viewer a lot more of what's happening. I think I like this composition better, and it's the feedback I gave here is obviously you can play around with here a lot more, and I can see it happening a little bit better, or being applied similarly. And much like a chill strand, you need to have stronger rhythm of what's being lit in major shapes versus what's in shadow. It'll just help the viewer a lot more in understanding consistency of the light. Well, that's it for you. All right. Next is Sayart Unfinished. I think it's pretty cool. Here's another one. The full composition. Jon Snow. I think this is pretty good. You know, we can see the character, but there's a lot of constructional problems with the face, especially on him, to get him to look the way he does, because he doesn't have normal proportions, or standard probably is better. He's normal, obviously, he's a human. Dinklage. He plays Tyrion Lannister. I forgot what his name was. I'm gonna try. All right, there we go. That's the photo you used. So just for him as an example, I'm not the like utmost expert when it comes to portraiture and anatomy and stuff, but I can see some mistakes. A spam bot is whispering you? Is it the, I guess the... Sounds interesting. So one thing I think which is clear is his nose. It has to be smaller and shorter. And also his eye has to kind of move in a bit more, and this eye move out. So it's the same for
All right.
hey Uruk the Kingslayer. So same applies for you like for Atsuki, I think it was, right? Rocky Rod, that bitch. So Captain Jetlag. So there's I guess on Twitch now some bot in the chat, or is it outside of the chat? So what was the name? Melinda. Well, it's not on the list here. So I guess it's from somewhere else. Anyway, so yeah, the problem is with his face. He's very non-standard proportions. And the whole eye section, I think, is too big as well. But it is tricky. It is tricky. I think he made his mouth slightly too big as well. So much like I think it was Zealand, you gotta do a lot more measuring and try to like flick your eyes back and forward and try to see where how the proportions relate to each other. That's good, Captain Jetlag. Spam is annoying. So there's a lot of like subtleties that you gotta keep an eye out for. And squinting is probably the best way to get that down. and flipping the canvas a lot. Obviously, I'm not doing it because I'm just trying to quickly attempt to fix the proportions. And for him also, which is also common with a lot of, I guess, short people, is the common or the correct wording, is that they have different head shape. So their hair is always resting on the head differently, because structurally they have it slightly differently because they're shorter and the proportions are squashed. The same for very tall people, they also have different proportions. Yeah, so you could continue doing that. I could continue doing that all day, but probably you'll see um, the difference and how you need to approach it. And I think when it comes to color and so on, the light, uh, his face is not as bad as hers, especially her hair. It's very all over the place in value, uh, much like Chillstrand, etc. You need to have a stronger rhythm of the light, like what's in being lit and what's in shadow. A good example of that is like one of the masters at it, which is Rembrandt. Um, he has always great lighting when it comes to portraits and light, and it's all about like grouping the light and the subtleties of it. Um, so I'd say look up Rembrandt and how he deals with values and light. He's definitely a guy that you can learn from. Um, like here's one of his paintings, and you can see saturation, like where the saturation is increased and desaturated, and, and greens, uh, even though the value range is quite short. You know, it's not very high contrast. The contrast is in the eyes. But because of how he shifts the saturation and desaturates and so on, it reads so well. And the problem here in yours, it's so easy to flatten the light and and be very monotone in the way you shift your hues. So that's something you gotta look into. And like for example, Rembrandt, he shows it quite well. You know, you can break his colors down a lot more and see that there's pink, there's reds, there's blues, there's purples, there's grays, and so on, and try to reverse engineer that and figure stuff out, and you'll see that with the correct color shifts at the correct places, your paintings will come alive a lot more. That's it for you, Mr. Sayart. Next person. Jakub Mubli. Yes. So Jacob Mobley. I think this is pretty cool. Um, I think with a white background is cool. I think you lost an opportunity to use the white background to further help showcase the painting. Dear Mark. Yeah, let's compare your stuff to one of the masters. No, but I'm just saying that he shows you there some clear direction that that your painting was lacking, because uh, Sayer's painting was very monochromatic in the light, and also the light itself was very flat. So it became, as soon as there was the form of the nose turned, and then there's a fold in here and a fold there, and it all had the same intensity, and just flattens the painting. Anyways, uh, back to Jacob Mobley's. I think compositionally it works. Um, my only worry is that, like, what is the hierarchy of uh, the thing, right? This main bad guy, he's up here, right? Maybe he needs to be bigger or smaller. You know, maybe we can see him more like standing, maybe with a spear or something, because it becomes just more of the same constantly. Yeah, Loriba, I'll get to yours. Unfortunately, you will only see the recording. Uh, have fun with your booty call. No, I'm just kidding. You said it wasn't a booty call. So catch you tomorrow morning. All right. So my point being is that all three heads were equal, and it's losing some of that rhythm, that impact. So maybe the decision to make this guy stand up might not be the best, but uh, at the moment I'm just trying to capture a more interesting rhythm. So it's just not so balanced. So I'm assuming these are zombies all going into the background, and you could that being said, you could easily have it slightly more asymmetrical and having a stronger uh, like a flow through it like that, so you can keep it asymmetrical and have these creatures kind of help to dictate the eye around. And also, I would probably play with the light a little bit more, much like the other critiques. It becomes very isolated, the whole picture. And I think, like I was trying to get to the background, right? It looks like the Iron Throne, or maybe it's a dragon. So you could, in theory, like have a dragon in the silhouette to show, further the narrative. Angry dragon mouth. Andrea, well, it could be the biggest if you choose to do that way. I mean, you could also have him being a focal point by having only one with the body shown. It's either, doesn't really matter. Just because it's the bad guy doesn't mean he needs the biggest space. It's just a matter of the composition. Isolated. So I mean, it depends on how you wanna change it up, right? So by having him maybe like emote, and these are kind of falling into shadow more, we can clearly the rhythm will be different. And this is just one way to do it, not necessarily the one true only way. Much like what Andrea suggested, you know, he's the main bad guy. Could have the biggest head. You know, that's sure that works as well. Um, I just thought that the composition became just a lot of similar sized heads. So what I decided was to change it up so that the rhythm is just clear, and whatever Jacob decides, um, you know, it's up to him. This is just one way to do it, not the perfect one true way. So I'm quite sure Jacob can he can decide for himself what to take out of this feedback. So I think this kind of looks like dragon spines as well, which is pretty cool. Um, for the heads being the zombie heads, um, for these ones, it's very hard to read the rhythm. Um, so I would sit back and think about which heads are important to read and what grimaces or what facial expressions, and which ones can you hide, and and think about the picture as a whole rather than defining absolutely every single undead. But like I said, with compositions and things like that, it's up to a lot up to the artist. You know what their plan is. Probably have some other heads down there. I guess this is the end of the dragon's tail, right? And the dragon goes like this and then swoops around. Oh, that makes sense then. Yeah, so the biggest issue I have with yours is the light uh, at the heads. Like the bad guy, his being lit interestingly, but the rest are kind of the other three heads. They have equally sized realty, same spatial property, and they're being lit quite flat compared to him. And then the zombies, all their heads are the same size as well. So by just switching it up a bit, creating a little bit more um, dynamic situations, and the hand that kind of is, I guess, Jon Snow. Uh, you could light with bounce light and maybe show uh, armor or something to separate him from the zombies or the undead. I would vary the head sizes of the zombies up a bit more. I didn't really do that. I just adjusted the light a little bit. But I think it's a cool work. It's a cool poster. Just needs that extra push. So this, like I said, this is just one way to solve it. Another one would be to play with the sizes of the other three heads so they're not equally sized, and play with the composition of them. Play with, you know. So this was just mine off the cuff solution, which doesn't mean it has to be this way. But ideally, it'll give you some ideas of what you might want to change to make it a little bit more eye-catching and less balanced or arranged. So let's do the next one. This one is Ixies. I think this is really nice. I think it has a lot of story and kind of romanticism in a way. I think it has some really nice work. The question is, like, you have to consider like the artistic standpoint, right? Like, what's the direction you wanna take it? You know, is it photorealism? It doesn't look like photorealism. It looks more like a painting, you know, which is cool. And then you have to take it to the next step. Like, what's the point? What's the story? And you gotta like start thinking about what's it called, what's the end goal, or what's the direction you want to take it. I'm looking for a link to show you. I posted it earlier. There we go. A really good artist. He's Chinese, I think. But what he does really, really well is suggestive brush marks and things like that. His name is Zhao Ming Wu. But as you can see, like, the artist uses edges and light in a really, really impactful way, right? You can sense that this is like rainfall or getting really, really misty and foggy, and were lots of lost edges versus sharp edges versus firm edges, and there's very clear rhythm there, which engages the eye. So it's a really, really interesting guy to look at, and I posted the link to him on Discord. But what I wanted to say is, like, we will look at yours, and we get it that it's sunset, right? The writer is writing to the tower. This could easily be Game of Thrones, per se. Nothing says that it's not. It's just not overly stated, right? Well, I think that's fine. You know, we could easily assume it's Game of Thrones. So the second thought then comes, all right, so what are we looking at? So we're looking at the sunset, and you could then you should probably do some research, which you probably have, because the colors there are interesting. But if you look at the real world, not a real world, it's obviously a photo with filters, most likely. but the important thing I wanted to say was the use of grays and the contrast. The difference in contrast is very small. It's very subtle, and yours goes very to black to the contrast is high, right? So it becomes very contrasty, and you lose some of that atmosphere. So that goes to the second thought: what is the atmosphere? Like what is it that we want to tell story wise? Um, so that made me think about mood, right? What's the, where is she writing? Where is she writing that way? And we can see lots of lost edges in the mood here because of the fog, which then directs my thoughts to Zhao Ming Wu and his good use of edges, right? He does it in a really interesting way, which I think you could benefit a lot from studying, especially edges, right? So we can see the landscape here and the moon kind of just fading into the sky, and we can see edges and how all these things dance together. Hey Sayart, welcome. You just missed your feedback, but it's recorded, so you'll be able to go back to that. So if we take a look at your painting then, and think, okay, so we can, because we know that the contrast is too high in the sky. Probably we could use some more intensity. So not a lot, but just a little bit to help the story. So what I'm going to be doing is just kind of with a big brush do some changes and thinking about how can we dictate an interesting rhythm in the painting without stating too much everywhere, right? That's the thing that we saw with this Zhao Ming Wu, and what the other people have heard feedback is this everything is equal aspect, right? So we can clearly see that here as well. So by just playing with with atmosphere, like we saw on this one, we can make interesting decisions and help the narrative of the painting by saying, all right, it is early morning, she's riding with a message, right? We could give her a saddlebag or something just to help drive the message across, right? And you can ask yourself in your painting, like where can we make a lost edge? Where can we have a firm edge? Because all edges can't be equally firm. There has to be lost edges and sharp edges, so that when we look at the painting, we don't get bored. Because if everything is equal, there's no interaction for our mind and eye to wander. It's like looking into an anthill, right? It's just noise and doesn't help us whatsoever with looking at one ant. But we see one ant walking down the street and we go, whoa, look at that. So it's very similar way of thinking, where if all edges are the same, we don't settle anywhere. And you really gotta think about composition with brush marks, and it's not just contrast, not just hue. It's there's a point in the painting where you need to plan the rhythm, plan where we should be looking, and with that comes edges. There's really good rules about it. I think it's 7 edge rule. I think it's called 7 edge rule. There's lots of articles of it on the internet, and there's probably some good explanations on there. I don't know a good URL on the top of my head, but there is information out there you can easily find if you Google portrait painting and edge rules. But I must say you've chosen a beautiful palette. It's just a matter of enhancing that and painting it further, and just thinking about where you can hide information. It's a very common mistake to wanting to describe absolutely everything equally perfect, and that is the production artist in us, like wanting to define everything. But a lot of the great artists, they choose where they want to dictate the narrative. It's something that you have to learn, and it's something you have to apply, or your art will never take that next natural step, and you will struggle a lot with nailing that. The way a painting can look easy, like the really good painters, they make it look really, really easy, is because they use those rules to make the painting relax, even though they put a lot of effort in adjusting their edge work and where should the eye wander, and just because our eyes just feel comfortable looking at the painting, it doesn't mean it's easy, but it looks easy, right? So that would be my biggest feedback to this painting, is that enhance the narrative, maybe with some saddlebag, or maybe she doesn't have maybe we can see she has a saddlebag, but it has to be probably clearer. Maybe you can play around with secondary motions on the horse as well, with having what's it called? Not tarp, but horse clothes. Hey, Five Nights Alfred, was that? What was the name? At Fred. 5 Nights at Fred. Thanks for the follow, man. Hey, Sir Bacon Breath. Yes. Let's see. This is a painting by Ixi. Here in the chat. I'm doing a paint over for her or him. I don't know the gender, but helping to enhance what Ixi's already done. So here's very subtle changes, but as a whole, when you do more work on the edges and study artists like Zhao Mingwu, or whatever his name was, Zhao Mingwu, yeah. you'll start getting the rhythm of things much stronger, and knowing where to pack your punches, and where a hard edge should be, where a soft edge should be. And let me do one little last attempt. Just like a little attempt to help. I mean, I've seen you do that as well. You add a little bit more noise there, and just trying to make it a little even more clearer. But all in all, I think bigger changes doesn't need to be done. You just need to add more subtleties, maybe use some grays in a smart positions, work with edges a lot, and you'll see a big improvement. The worst is just to have like one layer. You need more than one layer. Hey, Blue Sky Walking, thanks for the follow. So mood, edges, all those good things. That's enough for you. Yeah, if Sayard would do it, he would have dead bodies in there. So let's see who is next. Those are done. Those are done. Oh yeah, Ohms. So lovely Ohms is back with his interesting palette, interesting shapes. I like it, but it's like it becomes a point here where there's the like, where is the artist? The difference in artist between me and him. It's like this character is clearly separated from the background. Is it meant to be? So I don't know, but I can see some mistakes. The whole cardboard highlight problem I've talked about on many streams is when you only have the rim light hugging the edge rather than what's called enveloping the form. I think that's what it's called, right? And I think that's a really common mistake a lot of artists do, that you got to keep an eye out for, is that you don't just let the rim light be one-dimensional on one edge. Actually, let me see. See if it. Look at the emotions, the intensity. Well, we can clearly see here the rim light doesn't hug the left or the right facing edge. It goes into the form. Even on the ear, it can't stay like just one single line. And the hair. So it's really important that you do. Hey, dear Bart, that you make sure that the light goes correctly. Thanks for joining, dear Bart. and welcome back. Sayard, yeah, you took Sayard's you took Om's place in a very wide palette. So that's one thing that I see with yours, Om's. I would like to see you finish it. I don't think it's finished. Um, but you can look at the feedback to everyone more or less this stream about colors and variations and I'm not sure about the background being just red like that. I wouldn't do it that way, and maybe it was intentional. Maybe you wanted it separated, that he shouldn't be in the world, that he's outside of the world. But if he's supposed to stand there, I can't see how it works with red like that, and the sword being lit in an awkward way, and scared as well. And also a lot of his clothing, um, they lack details like seams or edges, or it's just one shirt, one skirt. There's no like detailing here, and I would love to see a little bit more structure to him, and also the way you've drawn the hands. They don't feel natural. You wouldn't never hold your hands equally on an object because the hand is not structured that way. There would be a clear rhythm of the hands. Clear, or purely of the fact that the hand has internal structures that won't allow the fingers to be equal, most likely due to evolution, so that we don't mash our knuckles together all the time. They're offset so that we can hold things. If you ever have a big ring on your finger and carry something heavy, that edge like destroys the other fingers because it's just so awkward. And think that on every knuckle. So when we close it, it's not equal. Yeah, so I'd love to see some more details, seams, some sort of behavior or characteristics in the clothing or details to help sell the character more. Also, I would change the background to not just red washed. It's awkward for me. Um, I would pay as much attention to the character as the background. But cool that you're back on Arms. You should join in the next one because I know what you can be doing. The quality of work pick up from your other 2 week challenges. But I'm glad that you contributed, even though maybe you didn't have that much time. Okay, next. Lurib. I think it's a really cool use of depth of field. The problem with depth of field is the consistency of the depth of field. If it's just blurring of depth, then much like the light, you need to have it consistent, right? So in a way, the dragon's head works because it's not blurred, but it's very close to the body. And one of the reasons why it's a little bit weird is because the the neck is being lit uh, the same, and you want him to be sharp as well, so you can't blur too fast. Yet the wings are probably in the foreground, so they should probably be a bit sharper and blur further back. So that's the whole consistency thing, right? You got to pay a little bit more attention to some motion blur based on motion, right? And tracking, that the camera can track the motion. Um, so that's something you gotta be aware of. And one thing that you should look up is what red objects happen with green light. Yeah, I mean the painting was good, but it just felt like the background was just a gradient on top, rather than you spent time on it. But I know you have interesting choices of colors, but I also know what you can really do. But you're welcome to try again, man. Welcome back. Right. So what happens with red in blue light? And you could probably Google that. So there's a lot of funky stuff happening when it comes to that, but simply there's a lot of purple happening, because of the color wheel, and just overlaying this green on the red makes it not act correctly, right? So there's some color theory involved here that you need to look up. Probably it would be more in the like probably something like that. Would that be correct? Probably not. Maybe more blue. Or was that green versus red? I don't know. You would have to look it up. Um, but just straight green like that doesn't make sense too much. It really has to be. That's a good feedback, right? More yellow? Would the red go towards more yellow? Or white? Yeah, Morphia, yeah. Yeah. Obviously there's a gap there in my knowledge. I think it should be more blue-ish, purplish. And then direct highlights would obviously take on the color of the fire more. I'm talking about like the illumination of that the body. But yeah, making sure about where we're supposed to look, the rhythm of everything. Oh, you also said that you didn't finish, but that's fine. But I would play with depth of field a little bit more and showing the mass of characters and blurring them to help sell the idea of the undead. that might be true, actually, Morphia. Most likely would go towards Grey more. But yeah, that's an obvious gap there in my knowledge. But it is not clearly just that same color on top. Anyway, so we can you've been lighting them up. What I liked here about on this character that he's not being lit by the fire, but by the sky. So a lot of these zombies, I would not just turn them into black, but I would help indicating their masses with light from the sky. So I think a common mistake is always just using black for things in shadow, where that's furthest from the truth. You know, there's always information in there, and a painting can be a lot more interesting when you have information in the shadows and not just go black. Oh, really, Chustra? That's weird. On this stream or somewhere else? I would simplify some of the details here on the chainmail so it doesn't steal a lot of attention. So it's global spamming. So I would spend a little bit more on differences, making sure the light is interesting.
Hey, who wants to play Drink the Beer?
Right here.
Hey,
You win.
All
give
right,
yourself
what'll I
a
win?
high
Another
five.
beer.
Thanks
Oh,
for the
I'm going
host.
for the high score.
Much appreciated. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I would do research a lot more, and then Lurib. But working more on that and helping direct the light a little bit more, like I mentioned earlier on the stream, that it's important to have a uniformity in the light, that or consistency rather, so that everything in the world it sits correctly in space, and you don't never want to have it just change the rules just because the painting, you think the painting is better by not being consistent with the light. And a painting will always look better when the consistency is there when it comes to the light and the light source and so on. It will be a lot more convincing. And like I said to Ixi, is that it's really important to have edge control. I mean, this is what's his name? Zhao Ming Wu. Is that his name? I lost it. But his use of edges is quite extreme. But there's definitely something there to take away from his use of edges, and it's a common technique to use, and very few use it well. But artists like, let's say, Brad Rigney and so on, he still uses that as well. He's a modern guy, quite a good detailed painter, very realistic, but he uses also a lot of those lost and defined edges. So his nickname is Crypt Crawler. But as you can see, like on the gun and so on, there's a lot of lost edges and sharp edges, and he dictates a lot where we should look. And it creates a very interesting rhythm. Like the stairs here, they're very, the edges are very lost. You know, so it's really important that when you're doing things like this, that yes, you have depth of field, but depth of field can also work against you. So what you got to do is more manually decide where the blurring occurs, and then make sure that your major groups of, let's say, things that are important to the story or the painting is getting defined the way you need it to, and then other parts can be, the edges can be lost. Doesn't need super contrast everywhere. Exerts art. Thanks for the follow. So it's really thinking about edges is like the next step for a lot of artists, and it's a very common mistake that a lot of people don't focus on, mostly because the trend is always to just add details everywhere, but adding details everywhere never works. Even in, let's say, marketing art, where there needs to be tons of detail, you still, much like Brad Rigney, you could see with the soldiers, that's way more marketing art, but it still needs that definition, it still needs that rhythm, it still needs where soft edges can go and hard edges can go. So here's another one from Brad Rigney. He's a beast, but you can see like lost edges on her hip, and firm edge on the hip, and then a hard edge on the metal, and lost edges at his neck, and a lot of firm edges in the hair. So it's really important to kind of try to capture that rhythm, try to capture that balance. Hey, yeah, Brad Rigney is he's really good. So I mean, obviously Luribi didn't finish, but start maintaining those edges a lot more. Start building the image. Where is it important that the contrast is? Is it important that the contrast is in that eye, or can that just be secondary information? You know. All these things, like where do you want, like edges, obviously, like with the spear, useful if it's sharp, and so on, and you'll see the huge difference the more you do that. I think overall the palette's pretty cool. The red, I probably wouldn't use that red. It's a little bit crayon box red. Probably a little bit sicker, but would probably help the picture more. Morphia, yeah, Brad Rigney, he's definitely has his rendering technique down. He does it really good. It's a good guy to look at an interesting way to do things. So here you can see more of his mad skills. He's really good at edges and form. Obviously, he uses photos nowadays. Yeah, so it's important that you write down a checklist of what needs to be done in the painting at what step. Hey, Xlibu, thanks for the follow. Much appreciated. So it's really important to write down a list of these things that you need to make sure that you follow, and that as you're painting the painting, you look at this list and go like, okay, composition, color, posing, tangent. What are the things you need to make sure to include or exclude in order to have a good painting? And having that checklist and doing research on things that is important to have in a painting will teach yourself, as well as remind yourself later when you do have the checklist of things that you don't remember doing, and so on.
All right.
Hey, Celsu, thanks for the follow. Much appreciated. Yeah, so that's the feedback for you, Lurid. Obviously, like as per usual, I could spend a lot more time correcting your entire painting, but I think this should indicate quite well where if you listen to what I've been talking about, what the next step would be. And much like Chillstrand and the others, is the rhythm between light and dark could also be better. You know, like what's the painting's rhythm? Like that's one thing that a lot of these artists are good at, is that indication of where to look through the painting. Thanks very much for the follow, Catrim things. Much appreciated. Next one, J. Saurus. I think this is pretty cool. I think it's a interesting painting. I like the characters. I like the heart butt. I like what the big guy is doing, and I like the anatomy. Looks pretty good. I read that you built it with a skeleton, which is a cool guy, a cool thing to do. I read guy. So one thing, common mistake again, is like the global light, right? Where are they standing? Where is the light coming from? How is the light interacting with the whole scene, right? You have rendered everything correct on object to object basis, like, but not correct in 3D space. Zealin, yeah. Yeah, for those who don't know what Zealin is talking about, last night I showed my sketchbooks on a late night special stream because of 1,500 followers, and I showed them a concept I did for a competition with the mech was powered through the butt of the character. It was a silly concept, just kind of fun, having some fun many years ago. So a lot of people forget like cast shadows and the importance of having a relationship through the whole painting. That again, the whole idea of like consistent lighting, and for you as well, JSORS, with fingers and hands, there's a natural rhythm to them. You can't have like it's really hard to like I have to push the fingers up to have them straight, and then that doesn't mean like I even hold something. As soon as I hold something, the fingers are adjusted, and you can't hold it naturally without having, because they're different length. They start and end at different places, so there's a natural rhythm there. And a lot of people do like flat hands, flat boxes, like they're all the fingers are equally long, and it's impossible for the fingers to do that. So keep that in mind, that the fingers always have this staircase rhythm because of nature, right? You can't close the fingers at the same time, or there will be crash in the intersection. So they have to move it, differently, so that you can grab stuff without smashing fingers together. But it's a great start. I can see that you're not finished. Much like Chillstrand and About the Sky. The Chillstrand sky is that there's no subtlety in the grays. What I would like to see is like probably use pink or more pink or green in there. Let's just do this posterize trick to see what kind of pops out there. Yeah, like I said, greens, purples. By having those subtle color shifts, it will look naturally more interesting. And one thing to keep in mind also, when you're doing these color shifts, is not to do them universally as well, because much like having no color shifts, if all the color shifts are the same, it will be boring, and you might not even you might as well not have them, because if it's the same application of them throughout the painting, you're losing that sense of contrast between different areas, because it indicates like different behavior in the body, like more blood, less blood. So having these subtle color shifts can help indicate what's happening underneath the surface of the character. Common rules are thin skin with high pressure underneath, a lot of more reds, thicker skin, more green, green, yellow, and gray tend to be fuzz, fur, and of hairy parts, and dead skin. So you can easily start playing with the idea, like, okay, so color shift. So even though like if he's dead, obviously maybe you don't want rosy cheeks. So what standing blood is, you know, we all know what a bruise looks like, right? So you could easily start indicating maybe with a cooler tone so that the blood is not moving, but you still need that subtle variety in there to make it interesting. Um, Otherwise, it becomes too binary, and the eye loses interest quite fast. And much like hair, aluminium, yes, yours were. Much like hair, a good thing to practice is like if you're doing hair, like on her head, one good thing is to think about, okay, what's the major shapes, like the big blocks of hair that indicate the hairstyle, and then you work on those shapes, and then when you feel like you captured more or less what the hair should be, then you move to the next level of finer details, and you look for the rhythm there as well, like what's the interaction between the shapes, you know, is there strands of hair going somewhere, you know, what's the behavior of the hair, is it lumpy, is it, so then when you've done that next step, uh, and you keep looking at reference and research and active thinking about the rhythm, you take it to even the next step where you go even finer and start defining even more on key locations, um, where you need to add detail, and by doing that this in this arranged fashion, uh, helps you create a much more believable flow of the hair. Plus, you have way more edge control. Plus, you can dictate the rhythm a lot more easily than having to do it in reverse, where you have to go in and paint away information like I'm doing over here. It just becomes dirtier the more you do it. So by having a clearer definition from the very start, by thinking in the bigger shapes of the hair, and then going further down and further down, you're going to have way more natural flow. But that being said, like the her face is cool. All the anatomy is cool. I think it's an interesting painting, interesting decision. Um, but like I said, there's some issues with light. A common mistakes that all people do is they don't light it, like I mentioned, in the whole scene. They light everything separately, object by object, rather than um, you know, they're standing here. They should be lit like they're in a studio, and not the bodies have cast shadows. Yeah, just and yeah, there's a lot of that this time around, and also edges. It's a common thing to do. A lot of people just go too tight, uh, and don't think about the big picture. But then there is also compositional stuff, like for Jacob Mobley. the standout thing is this time around is a lot of flat light. Let's see. I think this is the last one by Hefes. No, this time around, not a lot of tangents. I think this one is cool. I think he's a mix of that Knight of the Light, right? The guy that couldn't die, and the dwarf. Maybe it's not dwarf. What's his name? Anyways, I think it's cool. I like it. There's some always mistakes. The repeating one with the cast shadows. You have them here under the arm, but they don't. The light is somewhat consistent, but it's also not through and through. And it's really important that when you do choose to do light realistically, which this clearly is an attempt to do, it's important that you follow through and really really consider the behavior of the light. Without that consideration, a lot of it just falls flat and it becomes unbelievable. Well, you can't relate to it because you see something is wrong, but you don't know what it is. So the character just becomes implausible in that sense. There's like an underlying doubt that this character stands in this location. But I think it's a funny idea. A kind of cocky good guy pointing at the flame and going like, and what are you gonna do? So just more consistency. I see a common thing is also with folds, that they are lit not in the scene, but just like general treatment of it in a lot of cases. And again, in a lot of these, I'd love to see some more hue variation to make it a little bit more interesting in the painting. Because when it's just one tone, and like it goes to shadow, it goes towards black, it is in light, it goes towards white, and that creates a not very interesting behavior dynamics in the painting. So it becomes very repeating, and a lot of materials and a lot of volumes, they become one-dimensional. And you don't believe them anymore. And bounce light is very important in paintings when you're doing it a little bit more realistic. And that's the whole thing again, back to like being consistent with the light and having bounce light and so on. So these are smaller tweaks you could, spend more time thinking about if you listen to all the feedback. Uh, you can play with material behavior a little bit more. What is shiny hair, what's matte, uh, and a lot of your materials, they all act the same way. Maybe you could have the buttons being shiny and picking up more reflection than anything else. Uh, maybe the same goes for the belt a little bit, while the others, they just absorb the light a little bit differently. And my mouth is getting really, really dry. But yeah, so just keep pushing it, keep thinking about it. Just a little bit more consistency. Things will start shaping up, and when it comes to rendering the light more accurately and the folds and so on, and that comes down to studies and understanding reality. And I know that Andre here is doing a lot of studies, and I think it's a great way to learn light and learn behavior and consistency in light. So observational drawings of light is a really good way to learn, or start photography and look at through the lens of how things are behaving. Ooh, tired. All right, I think that's the last one. As per usual, if you want the PSDs, I can send them to you. Thank you everyone that participated. So the new challenge is a beautiful view, and it's about the new two challenge is about capturing something beautiful, and I think we do a lot of too many angry things in this industry. So the new 2-week challenge is to make something beautiful. To be exact, the brief is as follows. A beautiful view. Make a painting of something beautiful. Try to capture what makes it special. Colors, mood, point of view. Let's get the emotions down on paper, but obviously not paper. But, I think this is an interesting thing. I definitely want to participate in myself. I think I paint definitely way too less beautiful things and too many angry aliens and bazookas and tanks, and I think some beauty is gonna having to be applied. Chillstrand, one good thing is you define all these light and color variations and so on early on in the painting, and not later. Always with all the feedback is construction. Make everything from the beginning, and learn at what point it has to come in. Like when does color variation come in? Is it after all the detailing? Probably not. You already need that color variation already pre-existing before you start adding details, right? So start analyzing your process, or everyone's process. You should analyze your own, and try to build a structure, and make sure the construction drawings and measurements are correct. And when you start putting light information down, make sure that you go, this should be in shadow, this should be in light. And then as you're creating the painting, you have to start looking compositionally, like, okay, over here I've decided that this should be shadow. Is it a good choice? Should I maybe make it brighter? Or and start making these decisions that will pay off further down the line in the painting. sort of, yeah. It's midnight for me. All right, everyone. Have a good one. See you tomorrow morning at 9:10 UK time. Thanks for joining in the challenge. Good luck with the new one, and bye, everyone. Bye, bye, bye. Here comes the outro. Outro. There was no outro this morning.